Ladies and gentlemen, the season for Otherworld Battle has rolled over. This is huge news. I have not seen anything. I'm preparing myself to react for the first time to the brand new set of rules. Let's take a look here. Battlefield effects. Healing ability characters damage received increased by 250%. Okay, that's toxic. Durability characters damage dealt decreased by 500%. Okay, that's toxic again. And combat characters recovery rate decreased by 250%. So this is a very, very interesting set of debuffs. Now, we also have to contend with the debuff characters list. And the debuff characters list is different because it rotates every 7 days. Now, in the previous list for debuffed characters, we had Adam Warlock, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Hulk, Sentry, right? Those types of characters. Now, the debuff character looks like this. So you still can't use any of these characters for this week, right? Actually, this is gonna be potentially changing. Or no, this just changed, and it's gonna be here for a week now. Yeah, this just changed. They took out Wolverine and they added Wasp, but you basically can't run Hulk, Gore, Wasp, Sentry, Spider-Man, or Jean. These buffs, these debuffed, are actually worse than the battlefield effects. The battlefield effects are bad, but you still have the characters at their full values, full HP values, defense values, attack values. The characters here only have 5% of their basic stats, which means that they basically get one-shotted by tier 2s. They can't take any damage, they will just die instantly. So every single character on this list is off the table except for Wasp. I think Wasp actually can still be part of Otherworld Battle because you don't even care if she dies instantly. She's just there for her tier 2 passive. So I think what they need to do, I think it's interesting and kind of funny that they put her on the debuffed list. I think they're trying to encourage players not to use her, but I think ultimately they're still going to use her because it doesn't matter if she dies. Like, I don't even care if my Wasp is already dead when we zone in. As long as I'm getting the tier 2 passive to give me debuff immunity, that's all I care about. That's literally all I care about. So they're probably going to need to do something different where they basically maybe say that debuff immunity passives, like, it has to be one of the battlefield effects, but that's for a different video. That's for like a different point in time. Now, with these new battlefield effects, what I'm noticing is Adam Warlock is back on the table. Adam Warlock back on the menu at the very top of the PvP list right now. And even more so because he can't be checked by Jean or Spider-Man. They're not available because they're debuffed, at least in Vibranium and Challenger League. So in my opinion, if we wipe this board clean, besides Wasp, my opinion, Adam becomes the first go-to for every single team. Now, let's go ahead and try to construct the rest of the team here. Healing ability allies have their damage increased by 250%. So the healing ability is this one right here. So healing ability characters, all the characters you see here, they take 250% increased damage. That's a lot of damage. So you already can't use Gore, but you have another reason to not be able to use Gore. As you can see from the list, you have two big PvP hitters there, Carnage and Wolverine. So both of those characters are being debuffed for the next 27 days. That means you probably can't use them. But, okay, they take 250% increased damage. That's not so bad because they still have the Immortality passive, right? So they're still going to get down to 1 HP and survive for up to 7 seconds. That's true. And then you take a look at the third one there, which is combat characters' recovery rate decreased by 250%. So that means Carnage and Wolverine can't heal anymore. So they can't heal, and they take 250% more damage. That's pretty bad. But it doesn't necessarily exclude them from being used because they have the Immortality passive. Now, what about that second one there? Durability's character, damage dealt decreased by 500%. That one is a bigger deal. Having your damage decreased by 500% essentially means that you don't deal any damage. And Adam Warlock had his damage decreased. All blast types actually had their damage decreased by 500% last season, and it basically was a death wish. Right? They basically you couldn't use blast types because they were doing no damage. But that's off the table now. But it is back on the table for durability. Now, if you go and check out who's on durability, you have a different list, a slightly more interesting list. But you basically see here that you can't use Thanos at all for the next 27 days, and you basically can't use Emma Frost either, and you also can't use Hulk. Now, Hulk is on the debuff list, so you weren't going to use him anyways, but even if he came off the debuff list, you would not want to use him because he's getting hit twice. He's going to have his recovery rate reduced by 250% because he's a combat, so then he can't heal. And then he's also going to be dealing 500% damage, 500% less damage. So Hulk is basically gone for the next 27 days. You can't use him, period, no matter what. Thanos you can use because he's only getting the you could use Thanos, I guess, because he's only getting the damage dealt decrease. He's only getting one of the debuffs, but I think it's still too much, honestly. Funny enough, I do still think that Wolverine and Carnage can be used this week. I do because of the immortality passive, especially if you have a 5-star or a 6-star version of the artifact. I think you can still use Wolverine to trigger to just do a bunch of burst damage before he dies, right? That's probably going to make Greed an even better option for Otherworld Battle for Wolverine over Authority. I know there's still a battle in a lot of players' minds. Do I go for Authority? Do I go for Greed for Wolverine? I think for every other PvP game mode, I think Authority is the best option, except for Otherworld Battle and maybe Alliance Conquest. So those two game modes, definitely Otherworld Battle and maybe Alliance Conquest. Greed is better. But then for the other game modes, I believe Authority is better. But then that's just my personal opinion. You're welcome to have whatever opinion you want. But that basically leaves everybody else on the table, right? So now we go back to taking a look at everyone on the list, and we want to highlight some potential weapons for PvP. So, for example, I think Black Widow, if you build her for PvP, could be a very interesting choice for this next season here. Remember, she has the infinite dodge. She has not infinite dodge, but she has like the Giga dodge that Spider-Man has, but she's not debuffed like Spider-Man. Now, she doesn't have as many PvP weapons as Spider-Man necessarily, but she does have iframe ignore. People forget. She does have iframe ignore. She doesn't have penetration, so you're going to be tempted to give her a Mighty Destruction or a Brilliant Destruction. Don't do that. Commander already did a wonderful video on Black Widow detailing why Greed is so much better for Black Widow. So I would say go for a Mighty or a Brilliant Greed if you have one. If not, then maybe don't build her for PvP right now. I honestly would not recommend the Mighty or Brilliant Destruction because you don't get super guard break immunity. And so then she's going to get guard broken and she's going to die before she's even able to pop off. Giving her a Mighty or a Brilliant Greed means that when the ambush ability procs, she can pop off. She can pop the third skill. She won't penetrate, so if there's certain enemies have immunity or invincibility up, they won't take damage. But if they don't, they'll be dead. And that is especially true for all of the blast types you're going to be seeing this week. And trust me, with combat types being so heavily nerfed and universals, well, not all universals, but the important universals being nerfed, right? Sentry, Gore, and Jean. A lot of people are going to be looking to blast types to pick up the slack. So I think you're certainly going to see blast types, which does then increase the value of speed types. So I think Black Widow is someone that a lot of players are going to maybe look back to and take a second look at. I also think the combination of these two right here, Doctor Doom and Morgan Le Fay, I think this is going to be a big one. You have double revive here, which is very, very potent. And you also have a ton of synergy with universal types because of Morgan Le Fay's passives, right? Look at these passives. Universal types get damage increase to bosses, which is whatever, but they get basic attack increase. And then universal allies, when debuffed, they remove all debuffs. She has a cleanse. It's not quite as good as Wasp's cleanse, and it only applies to universal allies, but it's still a cleanse. So what you could actually do is you could actually not run Wasp. Believe it or not, you could actually not run Wasp, and you could run a full or nearly full universal lineup. This could actually work this week, at least for the time being, until we see different bans and different buffs. But especially if people are going to be using Adam, and especially if people are still going to be using Wolverine, you could even try Hela. Now, if you look at this lineup right here, it's actually quite formidable, potentially formidable. You have 3 characters that revive. You have Reflect. You have Immortality with Hela. And you have Debuff Cleanse on a character who's going to output a lot more damage than Wasp, right? Morgan Le Fay certainly not a heavy damage dealer, but she certainly has the ability to output more damage than Wasp does, more AoE. Unfortunately, she doesn't have iframe ignore, but remember, she also has that increased attack to universal type, so she's actually applying a lot of different buffs to these universal characters. And then if you wanted to get real freaky with it, you could even try using Thanos as well. because again, he's going to be benefiting from that universal buff. He's going to be benefiting from all that damage reduction he has from heroes. And aside from Wolverine and Adam, there are not a lot of heroes, right? A lot of the rest of the PvP meta is either heroes that are banned or it's a bunch of villains. Now, I mean, I don't want to just gloss over everybody else here. So there are other options, of course, that you can test out and tweak and sort of play around with. I think it's definitely possible that a PvP team centered around the rest of the Spider-Verse characters could see some action, like using Chasm and Spider-Gwen, because she's not banned and she does have some PvP value with the iframe ignore, with the counterattack, with the artifact as well. So I definitely could see like a speed lineup potentially putting in some work here. I don't know where Spider-Gwen is. She's all the way down there. But yeah, there is some possibility there. There's also a possibility of a Warriors of the Sky lineup for people that have that full team built out. If you have both tier 4s, if you have both Shadow Shell and Blue Dragon, I think it's absolutely possible to field a team like this. And then Wasp. I think this could be a pretty headache-inducing team. Now, you do get a bit of a penalty on combat types to War Tiger. He's basically just going to flop over dead because he has no healing, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter. The whole point is they pop their awakening skills, they do a bunch of damage, they die, and then they all get to revive, and they all get to pop their awakening skills again, and then you die. So I think in order to combat this team, I think every player should be considering using at least 1 or 2 revive characters in their lineup to avoid getting swept by cheese strats like that. And then finally, I know I mention them all the time, but the Eternals, I think, could certainly see a comeback here. Gilgamesh, unfortunately, has his recovery rate reduced, so I don't think he's going to be quite so tanky. Actually, I don't know if he has durability. No, he doesn't have durability, and I don't think any of them have healing. No. So there's no double penalties for the Eternals, thankfully, but Gilgamesh does get that penalty there. Outside of Gilgamesh and Cersei, there's not quite as much PvP value, but you do have Icarus, right, which is really important. You also have Cersei. Remember, Cersei has a bunch of passives for Eternals allies, so you still get the debuff removal. You get 12 seconds of debuff removal with an 18-second cooldown, which means you don't have to run Wasp at all, right? And if you built your Makari for PvP, she has native penetration, and if you swapped over your Thena to PvP as well, this team could be it could be a shocker. I think it could catch a lot of people by surprise, especially with how good Makari can be when a lot of these other powerful metas are banned, right? You take away a lot of the metas and people forget how strong a character can be even without something like iframe ignore. So I really like this. I can't wait to test it out. I hope that I'll find some new strategies, but it may end up coming down to the old reliable characters of, Adam Warlock, Wolverine, just outputting too much damage despite their nerfs, and then a couple of cute twists. The last thing I want to talk about here before we wrap up the video is the buffs, the battlefield buffs. There have been a bunch of new battlefield buffs added that I didn't cover. I was really excited when they were hidden and we were like waiting to see what they were. The only one that I've invested in, or the two that I've invested in, I should say, is the all resistance buff here. This one here, that doesn't really work because they banned Jean. It doesn't really matter. And then this Pierce Ignore Shield, which gives you a shield that's the same as the shield from the regen. Now, this is very good. I think this Pierce Ignore Shield is very good, especially for squishy characters like a Cersei, like a Silver Surfer, especially if they also have Reflect. It can be very, very potent in combination, but it's something that you have to test out. They did add a couple of other buffs, but I don't think they've revealed a couple of other buffs, but I don't think they're very good. There's one here, HP down. When attacking an enemy, you can reduce their HP. This would be good if Debuff Cleanse didn't exist, but because Debuff Cleanse exists, this doesn't really have much value. And then the other new one that was revealed, similarly to the HP down one, is Skill Cooldown Increase. Now, this is a very powerful effect if you can get it to work. When you're attacking enemies, you increase their skill cooldown by 10%. And that obviously goes up the more you level up the buff. So that will climb up to from 10% maybe up to 25%, and the duration will climb from 1.5 seconds up to something like 5 seconds. That can be super powerful. However, it's going to get cleansed, right? If no one is running Wasp, if they're not running cleanse teams with Cersei or Morgan Le Fay, then I think this ability can be fantastic, and I highly suggest using it. You're basically going to have to play it by ear and see how many of your opponents are running cleanse teams. If you don't see cleanse teams, this is on the table. If you do see cleanse teams, don't waste your tokens buying this and leveling it up, because it's not really going to have a lot of value. Anywho, I gotta go and change my team really quick. I'm already getting attacked like crazy. I can tell here because my score keeps dropping. I'm about to fall out of Challenger 1. So I'll go ahead and do my attacks. In the meantime, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the new season of Otherworld Battle. Absolutely love this game mode. It's very fresh, very exciting. Smash the like button. It helps out the channel tremendously, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.